Good morning, students, and welcome to my channel. Let's learn together. So, today in this video, we are going to discuss the first chapter of class 10th test book, First Flight, and the name of the chapter is A Letter to God, right? So, as you can imagine from the title itself, you know that there is a character in the story who writes a letter to God. Now, you might all find it very absurd and comical that how can one write a letter to God, right? Because God is a kind of entity who has not been seen or visited by anyone so far. So, how can you write a letter to somebody or to something who may exist but outside the sphere of our understanding of the world, right? So, in this particular video, I'm going to discuss or I'm going to tell you basically about two things. First is that I will be discussing with you the story of the chapter, and in the next part of the video, which is of course the part of the same video, I'll discuss with you an important issue related to the same story. Okay, so let us first begin by discussing the story of the chapter. Well, of course, I'm giving you the story of the chapter. It is not a substitute for the reading of the chapter. The NCRT link that has been provided to you in the group, kindly go through it and obtain the story and start reading it between the lines and beyond the words, right? Okay, so in this particular story, there is a character called Lenchu. Now, he is a farmer and he lives on a hilly area. So he has sown the crops of corn and he is expecting the crops to come out very soon and to get a very good harvest in his farms. And he's expecting good rains which will help him to get good crops. So there is one day when he was expecting the good rain and he go out and he feels that the rain droplets are falling upon him and he feels very happy that rain has started, and then by next few days he will be able to get a good crop. But then suddenly, opposite to his expectations, and much to his disappointment, that rain turns into a hailstorm and there are big hails that starts dropping off from the sky, and he feels very bad, and the same continues for approximately an hour or so, and that destroys his crops completely. So he feels very bad and he feels that even if those crops would have been infected by the pest would have left more crops. Now the hailstorm has completely destroys his crops, and he feels very sad, and he's a very hardworking person. He was expecting a good sort of a crop test that year. Therefore, he decides one thing. He decides that he's going to make his request to the God. Now, you must understand that all of us believe in God, all of us believe in the power of God, all of us have faith in God. But here, Lenchu moves one step ahead of all of us. And what does he do is that since he knows how to write, therefore, he starts writing a letter to God. And in his letter to God, he expects God or he requests God to give him some money, right? So he asks him to give him some money, and he says that if you are giving me this money, then with that money I will begin the cropping and begin the agriculture once again, since he does not have any money and all his crop has been destroyed by the hailstorm. Okay, so he writes that letter and then he drops it into the nearest post box, which has been of course collected by a postman. The postman looks at the address, and on the address it has been addressed to God, and he starts laughing at it, and he takes the same letter to the post office and shows it to everybody. So there are postmasters, there are other employees at the post office who does not know what to do with that, and then what happens is that they decide to help him out, and they feel good by the kind of faith that has been shown by Lencho. They decides to help him out. So the postman decides to contribute some part of his salary which could be given to Lencho. And at the same time, he also requests all other members of the people, or the people who were working at the post office, to give their own salaries, whatever the part of the salary that they could contribute, so that the faith of Lencho in God could be maintained. So they start collecting the money. However, they are not able to collect the amount which Lencho had requested. It is just half of the amount, or probably little more than half of the amount that Lencho had requested. And therefore, that amount, they make a money order of it and send it to Lencho. After a week or so, Lencho he collects his money, and he realizes that the amount that he asked from God, uh, and the amount that he has received, is not equal, and he has just received a little more than half of the amount that he needed. So he wrote yet another letter. Okay, he decides to write yet another letter to the God, and he says that, thank you, God, for giving me some amount. You have given me some amount, but it is not the complete amount, and please send me the rest amount also, but ensure that you do not send it through the post office, as most of the members of the post office are crooks, which means they are corrupt, which means they have probably taken his money. So what you see over here is that Lencho's faith in God has been sustained and has been maintained by the people whom he eventually does not believe. Okay, now this is where I want to take my second part of the video too. So you must understand that there is a difference between believing something and having your faith in something. Okay, because when you believe in something, you generally there is a usage of, or there is yes, the usage of your rational faculties of the brain. You use your rationality, you use some sort of a logic to believe in something. Okay, for example, you believe in uh, in the facts or in the scientific discoveries. It could be any discovery which would have been told to you by the scientist, and you believe in them because there is a process of scientific calculations which might have gone behind it. So you look at the calculations and you come to a conclusion, and therefore you start believing a certain law or a certain discovery or a certain any point in your life. So that is belief. So when belief has a rational and a logical basis, whereas faith is something which is largely illogical, right? Generally, a faith is shown by children who are not able to use, or who refuse to use, a lot of their rational powers. Okay, for example, when a child falls down anywhere, be it at his home or outside or at school or at any other place, generally the cry that comes out of the mouth of the child is that of mother. The child cries out for mother. Now that is the faith. That is the faith that the child is showing in her mother's abilities to console the child even when the mother is not there. So subconsciously he has this faith, he or she, the child has this faith that mother or the father are there to protect him or her at any point, or whatever happens, even if the parents are not there, the parents are always going to protect the child, and the child has shows immense faith in the capacities of the parents. And therefore, whenever he falls down, whenever he is in a problem, the first person or the first cry that comes out of his mouth is um, it is the help of the mother that he requires, right? That is faith. Faith does not work according to reasons. Faith does not have any logics. Faith does not have rationality involved in it. For example, your faith in God, right? Have you seen God? Have I seen God? Have anybody seen God? Different people at different phases of histories or different religions, according to their own traditions, have given us an image of the God according to their own culture. So in one culture, he could be represented to you in the form of a white man with blue eyes, whom you know as Jesus. And in other cultures, the same God might be represented before you with a bow and with courage on the face, as Ram or Krishna, right? So there are different cultures who represent their own images according to their own set of beliefs. But then you believe in some supreme power which we might not have seen, but probably would have experienced at some point or other. That is belief. Okay, so belief is, as I told you before also, it is not based on lo- logic, or it is not based on reasons. Whereas uh, faith is something which can move mountains, which can help you to do things which you felt were much beyond your potential, or without much beyond your capacities. So here you see an extreme example of person's faith, Lenchu, who is an adult but is a person who is not much exposed to civilization, as he probably resides in a very remote area of a hilly place, and he completely depends upon, you must understand that he is completely depend upon nature to get a good harvest. Okay, he's not, he cannot use uh, scientific inventions, or probably does not have the technological ways of improving his crops, and therefore he has this faith on God that if he completes his work properly, if he work hard, then he will be able to get good crops. And if that does not happen, then God is to be blamed. So he has this very blind and a very childlike faith in God, and then he writes a letter. Okay, so therefore I expect you to understand the difference between belief and faith, because the concept of faith is central to this particular story, right? So once again, I request all of you to read the chapters properly. Read your chapter once again, and then try to understand the concept that I have just explained to you. If there are any difficulties, if there are any problems, please leave your questions in the comment box so that I can answer them. And also understand that since I've given you the story, it does not mean that you can skip reading out the chapter. So please read the chapter, get back to me as soon as possible, and in the next video I'll discuss with you the questions given in the text, and also the questions which are not in the text. We'll meet once again very soon. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day ahead. Thank you.